Hello real-world clinicians, this is Ali Nasseh and it's time for case-based learning number 10, CBL number 10. Okay, we've already done about 9 CBLs, case-based learnings, 1 through 9, that have been for the most part on endosequence as well as ESX basic protocol. It's time now to get into the advanced protocol using the ESX file. In this video, we're going to talk about the indications and use of the ESX file in molars as well as some of the more advanced cases where a different protocol is necessary than the basic protocol. Okay, it's time to take a look at a case, but just before I do so, I wanted to once again very quickly go over the basic technique and differentiate the difference between the basic and the advanced technique when it comes to the ESX file. Okay, so as we can see here in this slide, this is the basic ESX protocol. And what it involves is everything starts from a 1502 hand file. Once you have a 1502 canal, then what you would do is you would use a 1505, which is you get the expediter down to the end of the route, and based on how much engagement the expediter went through, you would choose between small, medium, or large ESX finishing files. You also have an extra large, which is a 55, that you would end up using in cases where large goes down fairly easily. So that would be a 55 finish. But you might say, Ali, this is great and I can do a lot of cases like this. Once I get a 1502 down, I can finish most of the cases with 2 files. However, when I'm doing molars, oftentimes this is not really possible, and I agree. And that's really what the beauty of ESX system is that it's modular. So you end up basically only using the minimum number of files required for a given case, whereas most cases or most systems will give you a number of files or too many files so that you could do more cases. ESX starts with a minimum number and then you build on those numbers based on the requirements of the case. And from what I explained to you, the requirements are always determined with a size 1502 hand file. So in cases where you have a difficulty getting the 1502 hand file down to the apex, then you would need to use the advanced protocol. And what the advanced protocol is, it's basically a series of orifice opener file. You have the 2008 ESX orifice opener, along with the stainless steel stiff files, sizes 8 and 10 in the control flex system. Again, this is also Brasseler hand files. These are a little bit stiffer on the size 6 and 10 that allows you to gain vertical length. Don't forget the rule of thumb, stainless steel, because of its strength, allows you to gain length, and then rotary files, because of their flexibility, allow you to enlarge laterally. So always use stainless steel hand files to gain length, and then use rotary NiTi files to enlarge the length that you have gained laterally far more efficiently than you can with stainless steel files. So you got your stiff files, and then you have your scout files. These are the 2 ESX scout files that are sizes 1504 and 1502. So these all come handy in terms of getting the file ready to a size 1502. So as you can see, you have a little bit of orifice opening at the top, then you do hand filing to the apex, and then you do a combination of 1504 and 1502 until your 1502 reaches the apex, and that the 1502 NiTi file replaces that 1502 hand file that you would be then using in the basic sequence, and therefore from there you go on to the basic sequence. I hope that makes sense. The basic ESX protocol starts with the 1502, so in cases where 1502 is difficult to reach, you use these other files in advance until you can get to a 1502 rotary file, or you could also use a hand file, and then finish up with the basic sequence. So everything, again, even in the advanced technique, is used with the SSC. SSC is a single stroke and clean, which we have done in previous tutorials. Please go back and review those if you don't know. So let's just take a look at one little table here that explains the whole system to us, the difference between the basic ESX technique and the advanced ESX technique. So obviously the basic technique is used in basic canals, and basic canals are defined as cases or canals in which a 1502 hand file can easily reach the apex. So those cases, you get the 1502 down to the apex, you get the expediter down using SSC, and then you finish with a corresponding finishing file. Advanced technique is used in advanced canals, and our definition of advanced canals are those canals in which a 1502 hand file cannot reach the apex fairly easily. So in those cases, you need to do some working until a 1502 can reach the apex, and then once the 1502 is down at the apex, then you can use the basic protocol to complete those. One of the other things that's important to realize with the advanced technique for the advanced canal is that in multi-rooted teeth, the question of whether you should use the basic or advanced protocol is determined by the lowest common denominator. And what that is that it's the toughest canal in the tooth. So in molars, granted, let's say in a maxillary molar, the palatal root is most of the time a basic canal, and the distal buccal root is very often a basic canal. But the mesiobuccal, the MB1, and certainly the MB2 is very often an advanced canal. Therefore, because one of the four roots is advanced, therefore we should use the advanced protocol for the whole tooth. As a result, most molar teeth end up being advanced cases. So you need to use advanced protocol for molars, whereas most of the anteriors and premolars end up being basic cases for which you could use the basic protocol. Of course, you may end up having some young patients with very wide molar canals, in which case you oftentimes can't even do those molars with the basic technique as well. Again, it goes back to the idea that the 1502 has to reach the apex, and that's how you would know which file, what kind of a canal you have, basic or advanced. This is a good way to triage the canals that you're dealing with. But as a rule of thumb, I pretty much use the advanced all the time on molars, just so I don't have to make things more complicated. So to answer the question of, is ESX only a two-file system? Well, the answer now appears to be clear, that ESX is a modular system in which the minimum number of files required to do a case is 2, and it's used in basic cases. However, in advanced canals, you will end up using anywhere from 3 to 5 files, and that really is the beauty of the system, so that you don't end up applying the same thing to every case and end up using too many files in some cases and too few files in the other. And that's why it's so modular. So this is basically how I start on my advanced cases. I have a sponge with my size 8 and 10 stiff files in there, and then I have this hybridization of taper sequence, which is the expediter 1505, and then the 2 scout files, which are 1504 and 1502. And what I'm missing to show here is also the orifice opener, which I also use. But I didn't put it in here because some people use the orifice opener, some people rather use gates. Everybody has their own preference for doing their orifice opener. But ESX has its own orifice opener, which is a 2008, and it's a wonderful orifice opener. So this is the basic sequence. And then after going through this, I will get the working length. And as we've discussed, the idea is to get the O2 down to the apex, and then the O5, and then the finishing file. In the advanced cases, oftentimes the finishing file will be a size 25, as is shown here. So these 4 files end up being, for the most part, the files that I would use to take care of my advanced cases, which is your molars. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this tooth that I treated using the ESX protocol, the advanced protocol. This is a second molar, mandibular second molar, tooth number 18. And it's interesting because this very same patient I treated myself 4 years ago, the tooth in front of it, tooth number 19, the mandibular first molar, using the endo sequence, and the BioCeramics sealer using the Bonded Obturation. And it's interesting because it gives me a chance to now have a comparison on the same patient doing 4 years ago the endo sequence and the Bonded Obturation, and now we're going to move to this kind of a endo sequence express or ESX file protocol with the Bonded Obturation. But what's interesting is to take a look at that other tooth that I treated 4 years ago. This again is now, but 4 years ago, look at the large lesion that was present around this tooth. This has clearly, as you can see, lots of bone loss around both mesial and distal areas of the tooth at the time of treatment. And this shows the immediate postoperative radiograph of the tooth after the case was completed. And you can see now, 4 years later, this this case also gives me some validation for the treatment of these cases, whether it was with the endosequence and the bonded obturation, and now we're just changing the protocol using the endosequence in a different way and adding the booster tip to it, so we have the ESX file. So I just wanted to share this with you as well, because it immediately gives you a nice validation for the endosequence system and the bioceramic bonded obturation technique. We have great healing, as you can see here in this case. So having said that, let's get on and talk about the second molar that was treated using the ESX file system. Okay. As usual, we start by getting our estimated working length from the radiograph, and this is 18 to 19 millimeters. We use the Real Endo Access Kit. First, use the 5909 to flatten the cusps. Then I use a saber cut, the 1558 saber cut, followed by a Dura cut or another diamond that you would prefer, to just get some nice flow in the chamber, and then a round burr to kind of mark the points, and then using the ultrasonic here to just blend everything in. As you can see very quickly, we've created an axis that is fairly conservative and flows in. Now the next thing to do is you take one of these number 10 stiff files and you just go, what is the available length, which is I just push it into where it goes and make a note of that length. I'm not trying to get down to the apex. Here it went to 14 millimeters on the mesials. So I noted that, and now I'm just using the orifice opener here, using SSC, and we're using the Real Endo brush here to, as you can see, my assistant here is just kind of brushing it off. I am taking single strokes as soon, and then she is removing the debris from the flutes of the file. It's a significant thing. SSC is a very important component of using the ESX. So then I'm using, as usual, as I've talked in the past, and there will be other tutorials on it, I use the ultrasonic and water to very quickly remove the debris. Now I'm just using a couple of strokes here of the expediter, which is something you can do, again, making note of the available length. I'm trying to stay short of the available length. All I'm doing is at this point just removal of coronal dentin here. And now that I've done that, it's time to measure the working length. I haven't tried to go down to the length with my rotary at the beginning. I get the working length with the apex locator, and I always confirm it with a radiograph, because you get a lot more information than just length from the radiograph. I also got the fact that the mesials were fairly curved. Now I'm going to drive the SSC. Using SSC, I'm trying to get the length, and you can see that on the distal I already reached length with the expediter, but on the mesials I can see that I'm having heavy engagement. At this point I have a couple of options. I could either just hand instrument using my 8, 10, and 15, or I can use the scout files, and I prefer to use the scout files because they're far more efficient. I already had a size 6 down to the apex, so now I'm using a size 1504 and taking one stroke in each canal, and then the 1502, and take a look, the 1502 will now reach the apex. I basically ended up just taking two strokes, one of 1504 and one 1502 in each canal, and it reached the apex. Now again, putting some new hypochlorite, fresh hypochlorite in there. Now the 1502 has reached the apex, and now it is time then to get the expediter down to the end. And I'm only taking the file down to the engagement. I'm not trying to press this hard to get down to the to the apex. It takes a few different strokes, and I'm going to be patient about it. After a few strokes on the mesiobuccal, I reach the apex, and on the mesiolingual as well, I've reached the apex too. So I now have the expediter shape. As soon as I do 2 or 3 different strokes, I always use the ultrasonic and water, which will help remove the debris very efficiently and very quickly, and then I very quickly follow up by putting full-strength hypochlorite on top of the tooth so that I have hypochlorite in there as well. On the distal, following the basic protocol, it looks like I should be finishing to a size 35 because there was not a whole lot of engagement. There was just about mild engagement on the way down. And as you can see, I went from a 1505, this is the third stroke here of the 3504, and at about 4 or 5 strokes, now I'm already down to the apex. And now I can do a little bit of lateral motion with my size 35, and there you go. Constantly single stroke and cleaning the debris from the flutes, using the ultrasonic and water here to clean any remaining debris. On the mesials, however, I'm going to go with a finishing size 25 because you saw that the mesials were fairly, there was significant amount of engagement for the expediter. But even though that, after 3 strokes or so, here on the mesial buccal, I've already reached the apex with 25, and on the mesiolingual, also after about 3 strokes, I end up reaching the apex. So I have now size 2504 in the mesials and 3504 in the distal. I decided at this point I could have used the ultrasonic to remove any remaining tissue, but I wanted to go to a larger size, so I just decided to go to a 35 on the mesials as well. So again, as you can see, I'm just removing the mesials, doing the same SSC. I'm going only to engagement. My goal is not to push the file down to resistance or to the apex, but rather just use the weight of the handpiece and let the file do a little bit of cutting and then quickly remove it and have my assistant wipe it with this Revoled Endo Swipe, which will be available soon, by the way. So this on the mesiolingual as well, I'm doing the same thing, the multiple strokes here. Every single stroke, however, is followed up by wiping and cleaning. This way no debris is let loose in the canal. And after about 3 or 4 strokes, I would end up then using the ultrasonic with water to very quickly remove any remaining debris that is left. Here I'm using the E12 ultrasonic tip on the Forza V3 unit, which is the Brasseler ultrasonic unit, and I'm using a size 15 tip, or this is actually the size, or you could use a 15 or a 20 tip at a very low setting with ultrasonic. I do about 30 to 60 seconds per canal, and I've now already, you can see that I've fitted the endosequence corresponding 3504 bioceramic cones. And now I am placing the BC sealer in each canal, and as usual, based on the protocol that I've developed since 6 years ago, this is the advanced obturation style, so I'm directly injecting only up into the upper half of the canal, and then I'm using the finishing file. This is to just push the sealer down to the apex. This is the safest way of doing it. If you don't have a microscope, then don't inject directly into the tooth. Simply use this finishing file to place sealer on the canal walls by injecting outside the canal on a slab. Now I'm putting the cones in there. I decided to put one additional cone next to the main 35 that I put on the distal, just because there was an oval shaped canal, there was room, and I wanted to fill it in with another gutta-percha cone. Then I'm seating the other cones that I had fitted as well. And now, as you can see, just using the Endopu 270, all I'm doing is just kind of cutting across right at the level of the, I don't cut into it, but rather activate it and then cut across. Then I'm using the ultrasonic here with water after doing a number 9 and 10 condenser. And you can see very quickly with the ultrasonic, it removes all of the sealer from the canal floor. And here we are, all done. And the final X-ray, as you can see, it's fairly large apical preparation here in the mesials, which is going to clean it up pretty nicely. It's fairly conservative access on the top. We have a little pop to small, little lateral on the distal canal. And here is the basic, this was the advanced ESX obturation, instrumentation and obturation technique, and I hope you kind of got a gist of it. Now, comparing it to the tooth in front of it, which was the endosequence treatment that I did 4 years ago, and it was successful, clearly both cases worked out well. We already have the results. Endosequence is a wonderful system that I had used for 10 years prior to using the ESX. I'm currently using the ESX, but I do love the endosequence as well. So as you can see, the key to the success really is adhering to the principles of doing proper endodontic treatment, having larger apical preparations, not having larger tapers, and O4 taper is really all you need, the axis preparation and ultrasonics and all the protocol. Now I've cut out a lot of the irrigation that I've done here because I didn't want the procedure to be as long as the actual procedure that took place, which, by the way, it was somewhere around 30 minutes to complete this case. And it just goes to show that, you know, using these modern principles, using sealer-based obturation with BioCeramics that allows you to have this bond to the canal wall, which will also then bond to the gutta-percha, that is coated with a bioceramic allows you to have this confidence as well as efficiency in the cases that you do, that you can have performance and you can have material that is biocompatible, antimicrobial, is hydrophilic and dimensionally stable, and it doesn't resorb over time, so that you can now apply sealer-based obturation in a predictable way and achieve results in a quick and yet predictable fashion for your patients. Ultimately, your patients benefit from it, and for you, you're able to use the modern technology and modern materials to get the most for the procedures that you are basically providing to your patients. So anyway, I hope this tutorial was helpful to you. Please go ahead, make some comments, share this video, subscribe to us on the website and on the various social media areas that we are on. There's going to be a lot more tutorials, and I'm looking forward to share our understanding here at Real-World Endo among all our faculty with the rest of you. Our main goal, as I've mentioned before, is to improve the quality of endodontics globally so that patients ultimately can benefit from the services we provide, and for root canal therapy to really become what it deserves to be, a very efficient and effective method for people to save their teeth and not have them replaced with titanium screws. For Real-World Endo, I'm Ali Nasseh, and I hope you found this tutorial helpful.